Hello my loves and welcome back. And if you're new here, then thank you for joining me and giving me a try. So today I want to do a little bit of a shorter video, hopefully, about bird dog. So if you're not familiar, bird dog is contralateral extension on the hands and knees. So what that means is you're on all fours and you just take opposite arm and leg and extend them out. And what I specifically want to talk about today about bird dog are three things that you may be experiencing that may not be optimal for your bird dog. So let's look at bird dog. First thing, and I always say this, is if you're struggling with your knees or any of your joints that are on the floor and you have a hard floor, give yourself some cushion. Give yourself some support on the floor. And I like to double my blanket up underneath my knees. Now, as you come into bird dog, you come onto all fours, spread the fingers nice and wide, knees are apart here. Take one leg back, reach it back. And as you lengthen the leg back, let the other arm reach forward, the opposite arm here to your leg. Now, it might not seem that challenging, but for beginners, this can be a really challenging pose. We're asking for some balance on the opposite, on the diagonal here. Now the thing is that even for advanced students, this can actually be a challenging pose because we can get a little bit sloppy and lazy with it. So here's a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind, and specifically it is three things. And the first one is for my beginners, and that is, for some reason, we tend to think we have to be in this boxy position of knees directly underneath the hips and the hands underneath the shoulders. And this puts a lot of pressure on our wrists. My suggestion for you is, if you have wrist issues, and I've mentioned this again before, take your hands a little bit further forward. Give yourself more space for the wrist to be happier. Give yourself a little more space there. There are other tips that I have on a video right here about kind of reducing the wrist compression when you come onto all fours. So that would be my first little tip. Are you one of these people that are trying to balance here with less space between the hand and the knee? And can you make it a little lengthier and give yourself more here? Now, the second tip is about the foot position on that back extended leg. This is more to the people who are avoiding things in their calves or their hamstrings. So what should the back foot be doing? Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But if your goal is for strength, stability, and for, let's say you're preparing to come up into warrior one, maybe that's your goal, or pyramid pose, then you want to think about that back foot. What is your back foot doing? If your goal is to use it as a preparation, then think about the back foot reaching back with the heel, but down with the toes. So that the back foot is in dorsiflexion and not pointing to the back in plantar flexion. So for those of you that are anatomy nerds like me, dorsiflexion, the toes are pulling towards the knee, towards your head, towards the floor in your bird dog. And plantar flexion is like you're planting the toes into the floor here. Like, I always think of plantar flexion like a ballerina on point. So you're pointing the toes. Plantar is to point, dorsi is to flex through the ankle. Plantar flexion through the ankle, dorsiflexion. All right, so in our bird dog, ideally, we want dorsiflexion. Toes pointing down towards the floor, opposite arm reaching forward. Now, a great way to get this is to practice your bird dog at the wall. You'll bring yourself a little further away from the wall. Now, you're gonna have to move a little bit. I am so sorry, you're gonna have to move your body. Take your leg back and find a nice position here so that you can feel where the foot is on the wall and see if that's available, and then take the other arm forward. This also gives you the sense that you're pushing back into the wall, you're pushing into something, because it's kind of hard when you're just kind of floating the leg to get that sensation that you need to be pushing the heel back. And that's what you need in your bird dog. So my third tip is again about the back leg, the back foot, the back ankle. So we've discussed that we need to reach that leg back, point the toes down, again, dorsiflexion here, and then opposite arm can come forward. The problem lies in that we start to think that this is the same thing. If you don't have an awareness of where your hip is in relationship to everything, your toes end up pointing out towards the wall. So that comes from this action. It comes from lifting this top leg up and trying to lift it too high, and then we turn the toes and they turn out. There's many ways to think about this. My favorite way is I like to think about 2 glasses of wine. It could be beer, whatever it is your preference, but 2 glasses on each side of your pelvis, and trying to keep them as stable as possible. If you're a wine drinker or a beer drinker, let's think about it as expensive wine or beer. So when you take that leg back, rather than extending it back and trying to lift it as high as you can, again, think about taking the leg back and keeping it stable so that you don't spill any of those glasses of wine. And then keep it still, and then take the arm forward. Now there's gonna be a tiny bit of movement, but your job is to make that movement as little as possible so you don't spill any of your alcohol, because you're paying. So again, to recap, what do you want to think about? Hand position here. If you're too far back, you're going to be too compressed. Send the hands further forward. Think about lengthening the leg back, not letting the hip lift. Toes point to the floor, dorsiflexion here, and then take the opposite arm forward. If you're like me, this is what I like to do, and then I try and balance here. It's harder. If I bring my hip down, then this stable hip is much stronger and much happier. And also, by pointing the toes down towards the floor, you're lengthening a little bit into your calf, rather than pointing the toes and shortening the calf. All right, I hope these tips helped give you some insights into bird dog and anything that you can take away to improve your yoga. If you enjoyed this, then give me a thumbs up. If you found something useful, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And remember, my loves, that karma is only a bitch if you are. So be nice, be kind, and be the change that you want to see in the world.